They say some rulers are remembered for the empires they built, while others are remembered for the way they died. In the case of Queen Elizabeth I of England, the Virgin Queen who shaped an era, her end remains wrapped in silence, shadows, and unanswered questions. Imagine a monarch who stood tall for nearly half a century, who transformed England from a fractured kingdom into a global force, slowly unraveling behind closed doors, not in a blaze of war, not in a public act of violence, but in the quiet, agonizing decay of her own body, decay perhaps worsened or even caused by her desperate pursuit of beauty. Elizabeth was the daughter of King Henry VIII, and Anne Boleyn, the queen he sent to the scaffold when Elizabeth was just a child. From that brutal beginning, her survival seemed nothing short of miraculous. She rose through treachery, through the early deaths of her siblings, and through years of suspicion and danger until she finally took the throne in 1558. For decades, she was a symbol of strength, intelligence, and cunning, courted by kings and princes, adored by her people, feared by her enemies. Elizabeth ruled alone, declaring herself eternally wedded to her kingdom. Yet beneath that dazzling image, there was always something more fragile, something hidden. The paintings of Elizabeth show us an ethereal figure, pale, ghostly, almost otherworldly. That whiteness was no accident. It was deliberate, achieved with thick layers of cosmetics, so thick that by the end of her life, her face was said to be buried beneath nearly an inch of paint. To the people of the 16th century, pale skin meant purity, nobility, even power. For Elizabeth, it was also a mask, a cover for the scars left behind by a brutal illness. In 1562, she survived the smallpox, a disease that killed nearly 1 in 3 who caught it. She was lucky, but luck came at a price. The illness left her face marked, scars etched into the skin that no Queen of England could allow to be seen. And so, Elizabeth turned to a cosmetic mixture called Venetian ceruse, white lead mixed with vinegar, smooth, chalky, and thick. It transformed her face into a porcelain mask. But what she could not know was that she was painting poison onto her skin. Lead seeped silently into her flesh, poisoning her blood, corroding her body from within. And she did not stop at one application. Elizabeth would often leave the paint on for days at a time, reapplying it only once a week. The layers built up, pressing deeper into her skin, until the very substance that preserved her royal image may have been slowly unmaking her. Still, Elizabeth was relentless. To remove her makeup, she used mixtures of ground eggshells, alum, and mercury. That, too, was poison. Modern medicine tells us mercury can cause memory loss, tremors, and dark, unshakable melancholy. In Elizabeth's last years, she suffered all of these. Her moods grew erratic. She was haunted by sorrow and guilt. Her skin, once the foundation of her public identity, began to collapse under the strain of endless treatments. Yet she did what she had always done. She concealed it. She masked it. She fought to appear unbroken. But her beauty rituals did not end with the face. Elizabeth loved bold, crimson lips, and to achieve them, she used a pigment made from cinnabar, another mercury-based mineral. By the time she died, her lips were said to be coated with half an inch of this crimson powder, a final, deadly flourish to the mask she wore before the world. For Elizabeth, appearance was not vanity, it was survival. A monarch without majesty was vulnerable, and Elizabeth would not could not allow herself to appear weak, even as the poisons worked through her body, even as her flesh began to betray her. She clung to the illusion she had built. Yet it was not only her body that was unraveling. As the years passed, sorrow took root in her soul. She outlived her most trusted friends. She buried her closest companions, and the death of Robert Devereux, the Earl of Essex, once her beloved favorite, executed at her own command, left her shattered. In her final years, she spent long hours weeping in silence. She confessed to her ladies in waiting that she was tormented by the execution of Mary, Queen of Scots, insisting through her tears that she had never truly consented to it. Her spirit was breaking, piece by piece, just as her body had begun to fail. If you've been drawn into this story, if the shadows of Elizabeth S. final days intrigue you, take a moment now to subscribe, because history is filled with stories like this, chilling tales of rulers, queens, and empires that decayed behind gilded doors. Together, we can keep uncovering the truths that time has tried to bury. By the spring of 1603, the Virgin Queen was a hollow echo of the woman she had once been. Witnesses claimed she would stand for hours, sometimes 15 at a time, refusing to sit, convinced that if she lay down, death itself would seize her. Her attendants surrounded her with cushions, desperate to keep her from collapsing. Her tears flowed freely, her voice trembled with regret, and she withdrew into long, haunting silences. The monarch, who had once dazzled Europe, was now a frail figure fading before their eyes. And then came the strangest details of all. In those last weeks, whispers began to spread among her household. Whispers of visions, of omens, of something dark settling over the Queen's chambers. A playing card pierced through the head with a nail was found upon her chair. Her lady in waiting swore she saw the Queen haunted by visions of her own frail body. Whether these accounts were truth or invention, they cast a chilling shadow over the Queen's final days. Elizabeth was dying, yes, but not simply from old age. There was something else gnawing at her, something invisible, something she could not see. And the most terrifying thought of all is this: it may have been her own hand that guided her toward death each time she brushed another layer of paint upon her skin. The end was near, but it would not be gentle. By March of 1603, the Queen's strength had nearly vanished. Her attendants described her sitting for hours on end, staring into nothing, refusing food, refusing rest. She wept often and said little, her mind circling endlessly around regrets and ghosts from her past. She would not lie down, fearing that surrendering to the bed would mean surrendering to death itself. Instead, she stood until her legs gave way beneath her, collapsing onto cushions hastily placed at her feet. The monarch who had once commanded nations was reduced to a fragile figure, haunted and hollow. Her physicians were helpless. In desperation, they begged her to allow one thing: the removal of her coronation ring. For 44 years, that small band of gold had never left her finger. It was more than jewelry. It was a symbol of her eternal marriage to England, proof that she had given herself fully to her kingdom and no man. But time had not been kind. The flesh around the ring had swollen and closed, embedding the gold deep into her skin. Now, it was cutting into her hand, festering, poisoning her body from within. Doctors warned it must be removed. They prepared for the painful operation. But before it could be done, Elizabeth slipped beyond their reach. On the 24th of March, 1603, Queen Elizabeth I drew her final breath. Officially, her death was recorded as the natural end of a long life. But whispers spread quickly. Some said it was pneumonia, others murmured of cancer, but many could not help but look to the strange and silent killer that had been her companion for decades. The paint, the powders, the lead and mercury she had layered onto her skin. Each mask of beauty had come at a terrible price, and now perhaps that price had been paid in full. And then came the most unsettling tale of all. Her body was sealed within a lead coffin, as was customary for monarchs of the time. But her lady-in-waiting, Elizabeth Southwell, later claimed that what happened next was far from ordinary. According to her account, the Queen's corpse became so bloated with foul vapors that it burst violently inside the coffin, a grotesque eruption of decay that horrified those who witnessed it. Was it the natural result of decomposition, or was it a symbolic punishment, a final cruelty delivered to a queen who had sought to defy time itself? Southwell's story was retold for generations, though skeptics pointed out her later conversion to Catholicism, a faith Elizabeth had persecuted during her reign. Was her account truth or vengeance dressed as memory? Still, the legend clings stubbornly to Elizabeth's legacy, a final reminder that even the greatest Queen of England could not escape the corruption of flesh. Her life had been a triumph, but her death, a tragedy that seemed almost cursed. And yet, for all the shadows of her end, Elizabeth's reign left behind a legacy that could not be erased. She presided over a golden age of art and exploration. She brought her kingdom through storms of religious conflict and foreign threat. She stood firm when all expected her to fall. Her strength defined an era, even as her weakness consumed her in silence. Perhaps that is what makes her story so haunting. It is not simply that Elizabeth may have poisoned herself slowly, year after year. It is that she did so knowingly, in pursuit of an illusion she could never surrender. To be queen was to be eternal. To be seen as anything less was unthinkable. And so she paid the ultimate price, chasing an image until it consumed her completely. Today, with the clarity of science, we know the danger of lead and mercury. We know how easily they corrode, how ruthlessly they destroy from within. But Elizabeth had no such knowledge. All she had was the fear of appearing broken, the terror of showing weakness, and the will to preserve her majesty at any cost. That cost, it seems, was her very life. The Virgin Queen's tomb rests in Westminster Abbey, beneath stone and shadow. Visitors come to pay tribute, to honor the monarch who gave England 45 years of relative peace and glory. Few pause to think of the woman beneath the crown, the woman who sat in silence, who painted her face with poison, who died tormented by regret. And so the story of Queen Elizabeth of X does not end with triumph, but with a chilling reminder: no matter how powerful, no matter how eternal a ruler may appear, beneath the crown there is always flesh, and flesh will always decay. Now, I leave the final thought with you. Do you believe Elizabeth's death was the natural end of an aging monarch, or was it a slow, silent suicide by beauty? Share your thoughts in the comments. I'd love to know what you think of this tragic and haunting end to one of history's most unforgettable queens.